Let's come more precisely to our subject, which is performance management and performance measurement. Basically, performance management, you can see, is the head category. Okay, performance management involves everything. It Performance measurement, on the other hand, is a subdivision of performance management. In performance measurement, by the name, you can guess that it basically involves measure a company's or a unit's or a division's performance. So it is basically measuring a company's or a unit's performance against the standards that have been set. And in performance management, we basically set those standards. So is the top category, and performance measurement is a subdivision of that. Performance management basically involves setting performance measures, aligning performance measures, making them in line with our strategy, with our aim, with our missions. You are going to learn all these concepts, how these things are interconnected, how we have to design our performance metrics, or how a company has to design its performance metrics if it wants to, or if it intends to basically pursue the strategy that it has set for itself. So performance measurement and performance management, the difference between these two, one, you people should be aware of that performance management is basically a top category, and performance management basically involves performance measurement. And most of our subject basically revolves around the concepts that are related to performance management and performance measurement. So I will now discuss our strategy in a bit more detail with you people, because as it is an introductory session, I basically have to give you a bird eye view of everything, how we are going to do, what course areas we have to cover, and all of this stuff. So I think we should start with the knowledge module, the first step that I have mentioned above in our strategy. So the course guideline, or you can say the areas that are involved in performance management and advanced performance management PM paper. First, the main concept that we will learn in this subject is financial and non-financial performance measurement and non-financial performance measurement. You must be aware of these two concepts from your earlier studies. Okay, so what is different now? In our earlier studies, in our earlier papers, I think in F5 and in P3, we have studied the financial ratios. It is basically a financial performance measurement technique. The financial ratios that we had, for example, we had profitability ratios, we had gearing ratios, we had liquidity ratios, we have earnings yield ratios, ratios that are related to equity, or that are mostly used by the companies that are listed or have shares. So in our earlier studies, we have seen the financial aspect of the performance measurement and the financial techniques that we use normally in financial performance measurement. So the first area that we are going to revise here is basically financial performance measurement. In P5, as I have told you already in this subject, wait a while, there is been in P5, the financial performance measurement system, you must have this in mind, that it must have came in your mind that how it is different from other subjects. In earlier papers, we have seen financial performance measurement, and we did the ratios, we do the calculations, and we do all that stuff. In P5, in performance management paper, basically the view is of a higher level, and it is basically relates to the measurement of the performance of different departments, of different divisions, or different units that are involved in an organization, and what decisions are then taken in response of those performance assessments that we have made, by using either by financial ratios or financial techniques or non-financial techniques. So in financial ratio analysis or financial technique, the most common one is for financial ratio analysis. We basically use different ratio analysis and figure numbers and stuff like this to measure the performance of an organization. So in P5, they have focused a little bit more. They have focused a little bit more on non-financial side of the performance measurement. Okay, and it is mostly the more examined side, examined in terms of from the perspective of examination. It is the more examined area of P5. They focus a lot on non-financial performance measurement, and the concepts, or you can see the theoretical portion or the knowledge portion, involves a lot of stuff relating to non-financial performance measures. Okay, so this area we will cover in financial and non-financial performance measurement. I have mentioned in this presentation below that we will basically look at the measures that we are using in financial and non-financial performance measurement, their pros and cons. This means that they will compare non-financial performance measures with financial performance measurement system or techniques, and what are practical advantages and disadvantages. Look, the main thing is that in P5 in examination, you have to basically practically implement the concepts that you are going to make in knowledge module, and you have to tailor those concepts according to the scenarios that are given to you in the examination. So the knowledge module is very important from the perspective that you have to make concepts in your mind regarding stuff, and then you should be able to apply those concepts. So these pros and cons, they will not be some long list of things that you have to remember by heart. These things, these will be the points that you should have in mind, and you have to look those points in the scenarios, in the exam scenarios, so that you can basically implement the concepts you have regarding the practical pros and cons of a financial performance measurement system or a non-financial performance measurement system, whatever they have given you in the exam question. Now, the next thing that involved here are the techniques of financial and non-financial, basically non-financial performance measurement systems. The major area of the financial performance measurement system involved, basically here we will study the ratio analysis, the different measures that we are going to, the financial measures I'm talking about that we are going to study over here will be return on investment, ROI, RIs, EBITDA, earning before interest, tax, amortization and depreciation, and economic value added. This will be the financial side. The non-financial side, basically they will in subject P5 we are going to study some concepts, some models that are basically guidelines for setting a performance measurement system. So the guidelines that we are, the different models that we are going to study in P5 will be balanced scorecard approach, Six Sigma approach, and there will be other Hope and Fraser models and other such type of stuff. So these models basically are guidelines how a company should design its performance metrics. I'll make sure, I'll try my level best to make you people understand these models, and we will practice the exam practice, the past paper questions in some sessions together, so that you can understand these models and can apply these models, because the requirements that will be given to you in exams, they will not be like this, that you have to write a note on balanced scorecard. They will give you a practical scenario, and they will ask you that the director is recommending that we should apply a balanced scorecard approach to set the performance metrics, and we need a report on that. So you have to write a report on that. You have to design a balanced scorecard on basis of the scenario that they have provided you. So this is the major chunk of the portion: financial and non-financial performance measurement, their comparison, how they are set, and what is a good performance measurement system, what qualities, what attributes do they have. These are the stuff that we are going to cover in these first 3 points. The other areas that we will touch in performance management in this paper is transfer pricing. This is also a concept that have been included in ACCA earlier exams, but in P5 it is included here with a different thought, and it is included here with a different angle. The perspective of transfer pricing here, most of these things we have studied these things in earlier exams, but the context of the things the way it was made, it was delivered to us, the purpose of making these concepts, making us to understand these concepts in earlier exam was different. In P5 it's different. In P5 you always have in mind that you have to make decisions, and you have to make decisions that are goal congruent, that are in line with a company strategy. So all these concepts that we are going to study here in P5, that we have studied in P5, we have to understand those concepts from this perspective, that how these concepts relate to a company's decision making aspects, what decisions do a company has to make regarding these issues. For example, let's discuss transfer pricing a bit. I'll share a piece of my mind on it. Transfer pricing, as we have studied in earlier exams, basically it happens when a company is a divisionalized structure or an international setup with subsidiaries in different countries, and their one unit or their one subsidiary or their one department is a profit center, and it chooses to purchase the things from another department or another center or another you can say subsidiary that is basically a cost center. So on the head, the whole company, the whole group is a single entity, but there are further sub entities that are trading with one another. So when we measure the performance on a divisional level, or when we measure a performance on a subsidiary level, we will set goals or we will set targets for each individual subsidiary, for each individual department, or for each in the individual setup. And the people working in those setups, they will try to achieve those targets. Now, for example, if a person is selling to an independent buyer in an open market, he'll find a different price. Simple as that. And if he is selling to another entity that is part of the same group, then the perspective is different, then the scenario is different. Now mostly we study transfer pricing here in this perspective, in this scenario, that a division has to trade with another division, but the division is not, one division, for example, which is the manufacturing division, is not willing to sell its item to other division on the price that they are demanding on, because they have their own targets and they have to achieve those targets, and they think that they can achieve those targets by you can say trading with an independent buyer. So transfer pricing, basically here in P5 we will study transfer pricing in this perspective, that there are two divisions and we have to get both of these divisions trade with one another by determining a price that will be acceptable to both, because it is a more goal congruent decision. For example, if you can see that a person or a division has to achieve its own targets, and it is human nature and it is inevitable, it is possible that that division will act in a mean manner, in a manner that is more beneficial to its own self, but not to the group as a whole or not to the company as a whole. So basically we look at transfer pricing in all financial and non-financial performance measurement systems that I have discussed above in this perspective, that there are managers and how they should be judged, how their performance should be judged, and how they should be guided in areas where there are transfer pricing issues, where they both are not willing to trade with one another. On the other hand, trading with one another is more beneficial for the company as a whole. So we have to bring managers on these decisions. Okay, so this is the area that is a different area that will also we will cover in advanced performance management exam paper. And the next area that we will cover here will be budgeting. We have seen budgets earlier, we have prepared budgets earlier, but in P5 budgeting will be applied, will be assessed, will be examined in a different manner. Here you are not going to be said in an exam paper that prepare a master budget, prepare an incremental budget, prepare this budget, prepare flex budget or this type of budget for it. There will be no computation. In the exam questions, you can see these exam in the past exam papers. In the past exam papers, they are available on the ACCA's own website as well. That the examiner asks budgeting activity-based costing system, or he is basically going to apply activity-based budgeting system in its company, and they will ask you to generate a report regarding whether they should do this or they should not. So the budgeting we will study here in P5, it is from that perspective that we have to basically evaluate the decision that a company is going to take, or the company is planning to take, and they want you to work on the grounds, on the authenticity, on the logical sense of that decision, that whether they should do it or not. Okay, so in budgeting we will basically look at the traditional approach that is used most commonly in budgeting, which is incremental approach. You will study the advantages and disadvantages of this approach, and you must be able, as I have mentioned this earlier, that you must be able to apply these concepts in practical scenarios. I'll tell you that, for example, in incremental budgeting, the budgeting is done in a simple manner. They will take your actual performance of this year, okay? They will add an inflation factor in it. They will add some other percentages in it, and in an average percentage is added to your actual performance, and that will be your new year target or your new year budget. So I'll tell you a disadvantage of that. A disadvantage of incremental budgeting approach is that it will automatically build slack in it. For example, in 1 year or in this current year, you have, for example, did something that is wasteful, that is basically a waste of budget, and you can basically use that resource in a more efficient, in a more efficient and goal congruent manner, or in a more profitable manner. But you didn't do that, and it was not intentional, because strategies can go wrong. Now in incremental budgeting approach, what will happen? The same slack or the same discrepancy, this will be built in the next year, in the next year, or in the next quarter's budget. So this is a disadvantage of incremental budgeting approach. Now you have the concept of this. You must be able to apply this concept in the examination scenario that is given to you. For example, if the company is already using incremental budgeting approach, and the examiner has mentioned some points that they have some wastages, they have some activities in their processes involved that can be improved, or that are not generating that much value as compared to the cost that they are incurring. So in incremental budgeting approach, you can mention in your answer that the company is using incremental budgeting approach, and if there are some budget slack activities currently going on, they will automatically build in the next year budget. This is a practical disadvantage of using this approach. Instead of this incremental budgeting approach, they should use a different approach. Okay, so this is how you are going to apply the concepts of budgeting in the examination, and the examiner will judge you in a more practical manner. The other approaches that we will also cover in budgeting will be zero-based budgeting approach, flex budgeting approach, a little bit about activity-based budgeting approach, and all these budgeting approaches with their pros and cons, and how a company should consider all these budgeting approach in its current situation, depending on the scenario or the market or the map or the market they are currently working in, and what will be the most, you can say, the most beneficial, the most reasonable approach for them to follow. So in budgeting, we will cover these areas. Another different area that we will cover in our knowledge module will be corporate failure. It is a small portion, but it has been examined in P5 exams earlier, and it is basically a technique, basically a scorecard technique that is basically used to assess whether there is a possibility that a company is going to fail its strategic objectives, or whether a company is going to have a going concern issue. There will be different factors in these balanced scorecards. The two approaches that we will going to study in corporate failure I'm talking about, and there will be given weightages an aggregate score is basically calculated on basis of which it is assessed that whether a company is going to fail or not. In the end, there will be some current developments areas in the current development areas in the in the P5 exam paper, and in this current development areas we will basically cover environmental reporting because it is new and it has been included in P5. So we will discuss that in current development areas. There are some other areas, there's some other concepts that are also here in P5. For example, you will see just-in-time system, you will see Kaizen costing systems, and all these techniques, you will understand the concepts of these techniques, and then you will basically learn how to apply these techniques in exam scenarios, in practical scenarios. Okay. Now, this is the overall knowledge module of the area that we will cover in P5. During this knowledge module session, we will touch some exam questions so that we can understand how these concepts are applied in exam scenarios. And in addition to that, after covering the knowledge area, there is a separate session which is the exam practice session. I'll highly recommend all the students that who join this P5 Advanced Performance Management session with me to attend this exam practice session, because exam practice and exam practice technique, these two things are very important in P5. It doesn't matter how much knowledge you have, how many times you have gone through all the concepts that are covered in P5. If you do not have the right exam technique, you will not be able to pass this exam. You will not be able to do well, and you will not be satisfied with yourself. You will say that you know a lot of things, but why I am not able to deliver that much that I should be in the exam. So all the students, I'll highly recommend that they should sit in the exam practice sessions, because in this exam practice sessions, we'll basically look on the past exam papers for 1.5 years. Which means I'm saying that we will cover at least 3 exam papers, past exam papers in this session. I'll tell you how basically to sit in the exam, how to plan things, and how basically you can use the different techniques that should be used by the students in PE5 while sitting in exam and make the best out of it. So it will basically cover the requirement breakdown technique. This is very important in P5. In this requirement breakdown, basically I'll tell you how to break the requirement of the question paper down into small chunks, and then how to address each of that requirement in a timely manner. Basically, for example, in the 50-mark question of the P5 question paper, the examiner basically, it will not require you only a single thing in each requirement. The 50-mark question requirements are normally broken down into A, B, C, D, E, at least minimum 3, maximum 5 requirements, I am saying. And each individual requirement is then further broken down into 2 to 3 separate requirements. For example, if the requirement A is of 10 marks, all these 10 marks are not given to a single thing. The examiner will ask you to tell a little about this in first requirement. He will say to tell a little about this in the second half of that same requirement. So you need to understand how to break the requirements down into small segments, into small chunks, and then allocate marks to it. When you will allocate marks to it, you will know how much you have to write. As I am saying that P5 is basically a conceptual subject. You will understand the concepts. You will be given practical exam scenarios in the examination. You can write a lot on it, but writing a lot on it will not get you over the 50 marks that you need to pass this exam. You have to address each and every requirement. of the examination paper, and you have to attempt the examination paper in a more technical manner so that you can pass it in a single attempt. If there is a 10 mark requirement and it required 3 things, then you have to break it down. And you have to write 3 points on each of that requirement so that you cover the whole mark. Now, if you continue to write a lot on the first, but you skip the second, the examiner will not give you 9 marks full or 8 marks or 7 marks. He will give you the max 3 marks that are allocated to that requirement that you have overly written on. Okay, excessively written on. So basically in exam session, we will go through 2 to 3 parts exam papers by using the different techniques of examination. These techniques, these requirement breakdown technique, mark allocation technique, these techniques basically will make you able to go through the whole examination paper in a more time efficient manner. Time management is very important in P5 examination attempts. Okay, the scenarios are long, the requirements are not simple, they are not like only one requirement question. There will be 2 to 3 requirements even in the section B of the examination, where you have a single choice as well. The 25 mark question, even in those questions there will be at least 2 requirements. Max there can be 3, but there will be at least 2 requirements, and each requirement will be further broken down into sub requirements. The examiner will be asking you about at least 4 to 5 things in the 25 mark exam. 25 exam is basically also, you can say, contingent to the marks that you attempt in the examination. I'll recommend that each student must be able to attempt at least 85 mark plus examination paper, because in that case his or her chances for passing the exam will be more bright, and they will be more better. But for that you have to manage time. So in exam session, in the exam practice sessions, we basically will do practical exam scenarios, and I'll tell you the techniques how to. And if there are any issues in your mind regarding any concepts, we can discuss those in the final question and answer section of it. This is exam.